Good morning, Jane.
Good morning.
First, I would like to welcome you back. I would like to summarize our last session that we had. First, before I summarize it, do you have any questions that you could think of from our last session?
I don't think so.
Okay, perfect. Well, I know we had gone over a lot of different paperwork, a lot of signing, a lot of discussion about consents, and what our goals are. And you mentioned that you didn't have any questions, so we'll kind of move forward from that. Um, First, I would like to let you know, though, that I really appreciate last session going over all this. And one thing I want to touch base on is the consents. Do you recall the consents that we signed last time?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions regarding those consents?
I don't think so.
Okay. And during our session today, are you still okay with those consents?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So today I would like a chance to get to know one another a little bit more. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. First, I want to ask where you are feeling, do a little check in, where you're feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 not wanting to be here at all, and then 10 being that you're so excited to be here.
Probably a 7.
A 7, great. Thank you so much. Um, So today, let's first talk about a little bit about your family history is what I want to go over today, if you're okay with that,
Yeah.
to kind of understand more the dynamics of your family. Um, okay. So first, the question I always like to ask the clients is, what is important in your life? Like today, what would you consider the most important thing in your life?
Probably my children.
Your children?
Mhm.
Good. And I know you've mentioned before how important family is, which is why I really want to discuss that today, because I want to be able to help you build a good support network, like we had mentioned before, as one of our goals.
Okay.
Um, who provides you the most support in your life?
Um, I don't really have a lot of support in my life, honestly. Um, I used to go to AA meetings and that was supportive.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't really have any friends. I used to have some friends, but my husband kind of didn't necessarily want me to go out with them or talk to them. So I don't have a lot of support right now.
Hmm. Okay. Well, thanks for opening up about that because I know that's kind of a hard question, especially in your circumstances right now. Okay, so who do you think provides the most support, even though you don't have much support? Who would be the one person that you feel provides the most?
Um, Maybe my kids.
Okay.
We kind of try to help each other out, be positive with each other, build each other up, things like that.
Okay. So I'm going to ask a few questions about your extended family, if that's okay. Um, how many members in your extended family, this can be brothers, sisters, mom, dad, have reacted to the problems that you are currently experiencing, or are they aware of these issues?
Well, my mom, we kind of have a strained relationship. It's always been kind of weird. She's kind of controlling, and and she's always pretty negative and pretty toxic, and I tried to talk to her a little bit about what was going on, and her response was that, I just wasn't being a very good wife, and that I was making bad decisions and that's why this was happening. And so I just kind of shut down and stopped talking to her about it.
Okay. I'm going to ask a few questions regarding that. What did your childhood look like when it comes to like dynamics of like your mom and dad and their relationship, if you don't mind me asking that?
Yeah, they fought a lot. There wasn't necessarily violence in the home, but it always got so heated that I was afraid that there would be violence.
Mhm.
And then, like I said, my mom was really controlling. She really had a lot to say about who I hung out with, what I went and did, what I wore. And she was pretty negative, always kind of criticizing me. And, she'd always find something negative to say about me. And so, it was just kind of rough. I felt pretty alone growing up.
Mm. It must have been hard growing up like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Who were your supports growing up? Did you have anyone that you could reach out to as a child that was a positive support?
I had a couple of friends that I talked to at school that were supportive, and then I had a counselor that I talked to back then as well, and that was really helpful. And then I had an aunt that I just loved, and she was, she would come in and just try to talk to me and treat me like I was a person, and like she respected me.
Yeah. Is this aunt, where is she at today?
Unfortunately, she passed away about 5 years ago.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, could you think of some memories from your childhood that are good, possibly?
Um, yeah, a couple. Like one time, my mom like dropped everything and just decided to take me out of school one day, and she took me to a museum, which I love museums. It wasn't really her thing, but she took me and she engaged with me, talked to me, was actually positive that day. She took me out to lunch. We walked around. That's one of the most positive memories I have.
Yeah, you got that one-on-one time with her and that attention.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is it sounds like your mom could have been a little overwhelmed too and stressed. Can you tell me a little bit about your siblings, if you had siblings, and what that looked like?
I had one brother, and he was like the golden child. He was the one that always got the attention. I always heard, I wish you could be more like your brother. Um, and I don't know if it was because he was the firstborn or what, but our expectations were different too. Like he would get B's and C's, and that was fine for my mom. But like if I didn't get A's, it was a really big deal.
Mm.
And so they were just much closer. So there was a lot of jealousy. We fought a lot. Um, but at the same time, he stuck up for me, like if I was being bullied or something like that, you know. But we don't really talk anymore today.
Okay. When was the last time you spoke with him?
About 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else in your extended family that you would feel comfortable talking to?
That's really all I have in my extended family. My grandparents are gone. My aunt is gone. So that's really all I've got.
Okay. As of what is life for you right now, like living in your family? Can you describe that?
Well, I've got the two kids, Dylan, who's 13, and then Kai, that's 15.
Mhm.
Dylan is a little bit of a rebel. She kind of does her own thing regardless of what I tell her to do. You know, she has snuck out of the house a couple times, and she doesn't really care about school so much. I mean, she does okay, but she's so smart. If she would apply herself more, I know she could do amazing, but it's just not her favorite thing. She is involved in Girl Scouts, and that's a positive influence for her. And so that's kind of nice to see her involved in something.
Good.
And then my son, Kai, he's 15, and he does really well in school. He loves school, and we get along really well. Like Dylan, I love Dylan, and we, but we butt heads sometimes. And I don't know if that's just having a girl or what that is, but with my son, we're really close and he opens up to me a lot. But he loves school. But recently, I have noticed since my husband and I have been fighting more that his grades have started to slip more. So I think it's starting to affect him, and that really bothers me.
Mm-hmm. Listening to you about your childhood, and it was similar with the fighting with your parents.
Mhm.
Did that ever affect your grades?
Yeah, I was a lot like Dylan. I didn't really care about school. I was more, I would say I was depressed growing up.
Mhm.
And it just wasn't my biggest priority. I was always in a state of anxiety, and so, I was in gifted classes when I was young, and sometimes I wonder if I wasn't challenged enough.
Mhm. Yeah. Have you ever been diagnosed with depression or anxiety? Hearing you state that you had experienced those symptoms, have you ever actually had a diagnosis of that in your history?
No, I've just gone off, I've taken some inventories online, but that's the most that I've done.
Okay. And hearing you talk about your mother, and your father, was she ever diagnosed at any point with any type of health issues, whether that be depression, anxiety?
I don't think she was ever diagnosed, but something was definitely wrong. She seemed very nervous all of the time. She had to be perfect at everything, or at least put on this perfect appearance. She would always say, like, what will people think? Um, and then she would just get angry sometimes for no reason. And it seemed like she was way too angry for the situation.
Mm. Yeah. What about your father, if you don't mind me asking?
My father actually left when I was 6, and so I don't have a strong relationship with him. Actually, I'm sorry, he left when I was 12.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I felt that sense of loss when he left,
Hmm.
because he was the one that kind of protected me from mom. Whenever she would get so angry, he would try to talk her down, or he'd take me out and take me out to ice cream or something like that, which was a big source of their fighting actually, because mom thought that he babied and spoiled me, and that she always had to be the bad guy.
Mm. With your father leaving, have you had any contact with him since you were 12?
Yeah, once I turned 19, he contacted me, and we talk about, twice a year, usually on my birthday and
Hmm.
Christmas. He usually sends me a Christmas card with some money in it.
Okay. Do your children, do they have relationship at all with your mother or father, whether that be, phone or in person?
When my mom comes around, the children, um, she'll spoil them a little bit, like buy them things and stuff like that. But she's very cold, and the kids pick up on that. They seem to get a little tense when she's around, and maybe that's just because they sense the tension in me.
Sure.
But, they just kind of clam up when grandma's around. Um, they like that she gets them things, but I wouldn't say that they're close to her.
Okay. Who would you consider supports for your children?
I would say I'm a support.
Hmm.
Um, Dylan is very popular. She has lots of friends. And so I think she definitely gets a lot of support from her peers. And then Kai, he's on the academic team. And so he's got some teachers that he's pretty close to, which is kind of neat.
Okay. Good, good. How does your family handle like disagreements? And this includes your children. So example, if you guys like your children have a disagreement with you or vice versa, how typically does your family handle that?
Um, so typically I try to stay calm. Um, but Dylan can really push my buttons. And so sometimes I just lose it and I start yelling at her. And I always hate when I do that. And sometimes I come back and apologize, but it's just really hard. Our personalities just kind of clash. And then Dylan and I just don't, or Kai and I just really don't disagree much. And if we do, we just kind of talk about it. Now, my husband with the kids, he's definitely a yeller. His kind of philosophy on parenting is, that he's in charge and they should do whatever he says. And if they don't, he has a very short fuse. And so he just kind of starts yelling, and the kids just kind of shut down. And then with me and him as well, when we disagree, there's yelling, and he's actually, resorted to physical violence a couple times. He's never hit the kids though.
Okay. Is it okay in your family to like show emotions, like with your children or you, to like voice or show sadness or happiness? What does that look like in your home, those emotions?
I try not to show when I'm sad or when I'm struggling, because I don't want it to become their problem. They have seen me cry a couple times. Usually I try to, run to the bathroom and have my moments there. If I come out and my eyes are red, sometimes I'll tell them I'm just tired or I'm not feeling well or something like that. And my husband shows no emotion. The only emotion he ever shows is anger.
What about your kids? Are they allowed to show those emotions? And how does he react when they show those emotions?
I'll talk to them about their emotions. It's hard with Dylan because she has all these emotions that just happen one after the other. And so you just never quite know where she's at. 1 minute she can be happy and like bouncing around the house, and the next minute she's so angry at me. But my husband has no tolerance for it. If she shows, he expects them to be happy all the time. And if she shows that, she's down a little bit, he, will tell her to scratch her butt and get glad, or, if she gets angry at all, he overpowers her and just will yell at her, And with Kai, he basically kind of says, that he's becoming a man, and a man's job is to be strong. And so he really doesn't accept any kind of emotion from Kai.
I'm going to ask a few questions if you're okay, and they might be a little tough to talk about. But if you're okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask them. And if at any point you feel, that this is too much or you'd rather not answer, I completely respect that. Okay. In your home, when your husband's home and the kids, is there any time where you feel unsafe?
There's been a couple times, yeah.
What does that look like whenever you feel that? What's typically your response?
He'll start yelling, and, he had never laid hands on me before up until recently, and so the yelling I could just brush off. But now, like, I become overcome with anxiety because I'm afraid that he's going to come after me, and I don't want the kids to see that, especially, and so I just kind of shut down. I almost become like the child I was with my mother, where I just completely shut down of all emotions, and I just become, I just agree with whatever he says to try to get it over with. And there has been a couple times though where like I've just had enough, and so I almost push him to hit me just so that it'll be over, because I get tired of the lectures and I get tired, of being yelled at. And so, I've gotten up in his face once, and he did hit me and it was over, but the kids haven't seen him hit me, but I know they've heard it. And that's one of my biggest concerns. I just don't want them to grow up in a household like this.
Has there ever been a time where you felt worried for them, for their safety?
Not usually, but recently, since he has been physically aggressive with me, That's become a big fear of mine. Anytime he gets angry with them, I'm afraid, that it's not just me, and that he's going to lash out at the kids too. And so I'll often try to interject when he starts arguing with one of the kids. And then it turns into an argument between me and him, because I'd rather him take it out on me than the kids.
Sure. Well, thank you for answering those, because I know those were some tough questions.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about, we talked about a lot of these things, these barriers and these struggles. So I really want to kind of gear towards now some good qualities and good things that you see in your life and in your children's life. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So what qualities do you see in yourself, the good qualities that you bring to your family?
I'm nurturing. I really love my kids, and I try to be there for them. Even when I'm going through a rough time, I try to put it aside and make them feel like they're the most important thing, because that was one thing I really missed out on when I was growing up. And I want my kids to feel important to me, so that's really, really, really important to me to, make sure we have that kind of relationship and they feel that, you know. I am part of the PTO at school, and you know, I don't get along with a lot of the other moms, and it's kind of overwhelming a little bit because they give me a lot of stuff to do, but at the same time, I'm good at it. I'm good at organizing things, and I would say, like I like to make sure the teachers have what they need and that, they feel appreciated. And so those are kind of some of the good things.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you like to help others.
Yeah.
And you like to bring others up.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Well, those are all really good qualities. What do you feel that your husband, possibly the good qualities that he brings to the home? I know this might be a tough question.
Yeah, he's definitely a provider.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to make sure that we have what we want and what we need.
Yeah.
He always makes sure that the bills are covered, we have food, and things like that, that the kids have the nice clothes, and that's important to him, is to be, like he says, the man of the house, and his job is to provide for us.
So I hear you speak a lot on roles. Can you kind of define on what you personally feel the roles should be in a home?
You know, my husband has kind of defined that role for me, that my role is to stay home, take care of the kids, keep the house clean, just those domestic things, which, I don't know that that's necessarily, I do think it's important to take care of the kids and be involved. But I think it would be okay to work outside the home too, and that's something I've really wanted, is to go to school and eventually become a nurse and things like that.
Yeah. So can you kind of give more detail on that with your outside involvement with the family? You mentioned that you're in the PTO. Is there any other supports that you have or things that you belong to?
Like I said, I used to belong to AA, and that was supportive. But I just couldn't stop relapsing and drinking, and so I didn't want to face them. But they were pretty supportive whenever I was a part of that.
Good. So next, what I want to kind of talk about is your dependency on alcohol a little bit. Can you kind of explain what that looks like, if you're okay with that, in the evenings when you feel stressed and so forth?
Yeah. I started drinking when I was about 15. And it just started out as something fun. But then, I don't know, with my mom and things like that, sometimes I drank just to get away from it. Um, yeah. And that continued. I quit drinking both times I was pregnant with my kids. I quit drinking both times I was pregnant with my kids, because that was important to me. And I always was kind of a binge drinker. Like, I didn't drink often, but when I did, I kind of lost control of how much I was drinking. But really, over this last 2 years, I've started drinking almost on a nightly basis. And I'll drink about a bottle of wine at a time. And then when I go out, you know, I'll definitely drink a lot to the point of, not remembering some things that I've done.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you've been in AA before. If it's okay, if you don't mind asking, what was the reason why you quit going?
Um, I could make it about 2 weeks without drinking, and then I would relapse, and I'd go back and I would relapse. And I just felt like they were going to judge me, because I just couldn't get it together. I saw these people with sobriety and they were working hard on it, but I just couldn't seem to do it. And so I just kind of felt like a failure. And, I just felt like, maybe they judged me for that too. And I was just kind of ashamed.
Yeah. Do you have any of those people that were in the AA? Are they still supports? Can you still reach out to them, like your sponsor?
I didn't have a sponsor. That's nothing I ever did, but I don't think I was in it long enough to do that. But there was a woman that I got kind of close to, and I called her a couple times. It was always hard to call and reach out, I don't know why. It was just really challenging for me. I'm used to kind of relying on my own stuff and not expressing a lot of my emotions to people. And so that was really difficult. And I still have her phone number. I'm sure I could reach out, but I feel like until I'm really committed, like, I want to be sober a little bit before I call her, because I'm afraid, that if I call her and then I drink, I'm going to let her
down. Yeah. So what does committed look like for you? When you mentioned you want to be sober for a while, how long is that?
If I could just make it a month, I feel like, that would kind of prove to myself that I can do this. And, I wouldn't feel that sense of shame, because I feel like if I could just get through, a month, it would get easier from there. I just, I've never been able to go a month over these past couple years. And I feel like that would be a really good start for me.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, thank you for talking about that and opening up. Mm-hmm. A couple other questions I want to ask, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. We talk a lot about supports and your kids and their involvement with others and your supports. Does your family mingle with other families at all? Like, whether that be school functions or parks?
Not really. Like I said, I'm part of the PTO, but I just don't seem to fit in with the other moms. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. They all seem like they get along so well, and I just don't feel a part of things. We do spend some time traveling with the academic team with Kai, and we get along okay. But again, I just feel kind of alienated a little bit. And I think part of that is, like, I don't want anybody to know what's happening in our family and just kind of put on this brave face. And I just never feel like it's real. And so it's hard to get to know people. And so, we're pretty isolated.
Okay. Is there any other information that you would like to share with me and your family that you feel would be helpful for me to know in this session? I know we've covered so much, and I appreciate that.
Ultimately, I think I'm getting to a point where I'm strong enough to where I'd like to leave my husband. And so I think, but in order to do that, it's going to take a lot of preparation. I don't really have much income, much experience. I only have a high school diploma. And so, I worry about how I'd provide for my kids. But that's definitely something I'd like some help with.
Okay, great. And we can further discuss that at our next session and kind of come up with a plan and concentrate on the goals and what change that you're really wanting.
Okay.
So that's really good for me to know to be able to prepare for the next session. Once again, I really want to thank you, Jane, for opening up this session and opening up with some of these struggles as well as strengths that you have. I hear so many different strengths that you have that we can work on and work towards. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10 now, after a session, where do you feel you're at?
I would say like an 8 as far as working with you, but emotionally I feel a little drained.
Yeah. Yeah. So things that we're going to work on is some coping skills because these sessions might be tough. We're going to talk about things that can be difficult. Okay. And so self-care is really important whenever we're done with these sessions because like you mentioned, it can be kind of draining. So today, what I would like you to start, maybe just to help with that, is start thinking of some positive things in the mornings, in your life. And just maybe write them down and concentrate on those as you go through your daily living. Supports is something we're going to really talk about more because with what you're wanting, that change you're wanting, you're going to need a lot of supports. We can help find those supports and get that good foundation. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you again so much for coming today, Jane. Do you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. Thank you, and we'll see you at the next session, okay?
All right.
All right.